Infrared remote controls are all around us for our televisions and satellite decoders and all sorts of things. Air conditioning control, you name it, you can control it. It therefore comes as no surprise that in our Arduino development kit from Elegoo there is an infrared receiver and a complementary transmitter. What you can do with these things is really only limited by your own imagination. Here's one simple example. We saw in a previous video how to control an RGB LED. Now we can control it just at the press of a button. Here's the red coming up and down again. Similarly with the green and the blue. And of course, by mixing in different amounts of the different colours, we can make any colour we wish. You can see the little LED blinking on the receiver there as it receives the commands. Here's another example featuring one of my favourite devices, the Servo. So with the buttons here, we can make the Servo, in this instance, just move through 90 degrees. You can change that in the program, obviously. You can use this to control whatever you feel. Might be a remote camera shutter release perhaps, or even I've seen them attached to bird or pet feeders to open and close the top of a container, releasing an amount of food. How does all this magic work, I hear you ask? Well, let's move over to the Elegoo example and we'll go through it. Here is the Elegoo example, and it gives a good basic description of the module, which you can see here. If, like me, you're somewhat of a pack rat and can't pass anything left by the bins without taking it apart, you can find these modules in many devices, obviously. This is out of a little mini CD cassette type thing, but it's exactly the same module and will save yourself a few pennies. The wiring of it is very simple, just ground and plus volts and the signal wire. Clearly, as it explains here, being infrared, you cannot see it. Cameras, of course, can see the signal easily, and this is the first test that I do. People bring me a remote control saying, oh, it won't work, and the first thing is obviously to press one of the buttons under a camera and check that you can see the light. I should have mentioned at the beginning, the supplied remote has a little slide-in plastic tab that keeps the battery fresh, so you need to pull that tab out before you can use the remote. Moving on, there's quite a detailed description there which we're not going to go into now. You can read through that yourselves. And as I said, just the 3-pin connections, the data going to the digital input 11. So very simple to set up. Equally, the code is very simple. All that happens is that as you press the buttons, you can see the decoded button designation. Let's take a look at that with the script loaded here, going to the tools in the serial monitor, the button decode. We press the power button, volume plus, function stop, they're all displayed there. 0, 1, 2, 3. Now the program knows what the values are because they're detailed here in the sketch. When the decoder outputs this hexadecimal number, it knows that that refers to the power button. As it's already been decoded, it doesn't show us what those are. If we wish then to use an unknown remote, how are we going to find out what the code is? What I've done is to modify slightly the Elegoo sketch, and I've commented it out for the moment, but let's put these comments back. What I'm doing here is to print the actual codes that are coming from any remote, both in decimal and in hexadecimal. Depending on the sketch, this one is using hexadecimal. You may find others that require the decimal code. Now you can obviously look that up on the interweb, but it's just as easy to put it in the program here. That's done by this serial print command, the results value, comma, hex for hexadecimal. If we upload that variant of the sketch now, go back to our tools and the serial monitor. Now when we press, for example, the power button, we can see the decimal and hexadecimal values and the power description. If we look at the hexadecimal value here, it equates to that which is in the sketch here, and therefore it knows that that's the power button. This is how I was able to program this remote to control the servo. So in the servo sketch, all I've done is to put the decoded values into that to control the servo. Very simple and straightforward. I hope you found that of interest and will investigate your own remote controls.